live on the internet. Hey, Mario.
Hey, how you doing?
What's fantastic? Awesome. So for the four people who don't know, Mario used to be a U.S. Coast Guard helicopter rescue swimmer. He is a water safety expert. He's a boating safety expert. He used to serve on the board of the National Drowning Prevention Alliance and does a host of activity in regards to open water safety and boating safety. He wrote I'm going to go ahead and say famous article on drowning, that drowning does not look like drowning, that it's been shared. How many times has that thing been viewed now? You know?
If you just count my site, Slate, and G Captain, I think it's 26 million on those three sites.
Wow, I was not expecting you to say that.
No, and that's those three sites. It's been translated into 17 languages, and I haven't given a count. I finally just released it to the public domain, so hopefully less people would ask if they could print it. I still get asked, and I say it doesn't belong to me. It's public domain, but
right.
And every summer it just gets a resurgent on a different website. Sounding's got another couple million views just this summer.
That's crazy.
On Sounding. Yeah.
What made you want to write that?
It started the article. I had a version of it that was in On Scene magazine. I wrote for the Coast Guard in 2007, and what prompted that article was a rescue case where I wasn't on the case. I was back in the shop, and the guy walked in and told the rescue swimmer, a friend of mine told this story, that they went out, there was a family that their boat overturned in a squall in Lake Pontchartrain outside New Orleans. And the pilot said, it looks like they're fine. Again, there was people in the water treading water looking at the helicopter, and the pilot said they look like they're fine, and the rescue swimmer said, no, sir, it looks like they're drowning. And I was interested in that difference. How did the pilot think they were fine, and the swimmer thought they didn't look fine? Mm-hmm. You know, these two guys think different things about drowning. And I had, before that, I had worked at the Secret Service for 3 weeks, helping a friend, the guy that ran the program, Jim Corey, the water safety program back in the day. And we sort of, we scammed the Coast Guard and the Secret Service. We scammed each other. He made the Secret Service believe that the Coast Guard wanted to send me, and I made the Coast Guard believe that the Secret Service asked for me, and I got 3 weeks at the training center to teach his rescue swimmers. But I got to go through his course, too. And that's where I saw first Frank Pia's videos from 1970 on drowning, and it showed he had recorded drownings at that beach in New York. And so there would be a child drowning and an adult swim by or walk by and have no idea. That's all videos from the 70s. And he coined the phrase the instinctive drowning response. And so I had exposure to that training, and I knew what the swimmer was talking about. And I wrote that article, Drowning Doesn't Look Like Drowning. And then I tried to give it away to, I sent it to Reader's Digest and Parade magazine, these magazines I thought that, might be interested in the version that I wrote, and nobody wanted it. They said it was too dark, and they don't want it. And so John Conrad at G Captain said, well, I'll put it up on my site. And he did. This was in 2010, and Facebook was really starting to become a thing. And it took his website down. It went viral on Facebook and took his website down. And so I put it up on my website, and it took my website down. And it just, that was the summer of 2010. And it was my job. It was another full-time job that summer, answering emails from that initial release when it went out.
Yeah, I could imagine. So for anyone who doesn't know, kind of tell the story. What are the misconceptions about drowning?
Well, the misconceptions about drowning, and hopefully it's becoming less and less. And I think in part because of the way that article spread. That's what Frank Pia said, that so many more people are talking about it than he could get to talk about it in the 70s. And I think it has a lot to do with the internet, of course. But the misconception is that that people will call for help when drowning, that that'll be a splashing, violent event. It'll be a dramatic event. You'll be able to see it very, very clearly if someone was drowning, and they would call out for help. And we see this still. I saw a fire department training video where they were doing training on responding to drownings, and their actor in the water was just going nuts.
In a fire department video.
at a fire department. This was
that's
4 years ago. And so, but in reality, a person who's drowning cannot call out for help. If speech is an overlaid function of breathing, and if you can't breathe, then you can't stop not breathing, so you can take a breath and speak. You just can't do it. Now, and I get a lot of pushback on that because, well, I yelled and I was in trouble. That's called aquatic distress. That means you're at your limits. But real drowning, and particularly children, don't go through aquatic distress. They immediately panic if they're non-swimmers. They don't have that. They're less likely to have that moment of recognition of being in trouble. Mm-hmm. They're quicker to the instinctive drowning response, and so they won't make a sound often. And anyone who's lifeguarded at a busy pool, will remember seeing kids jump in the water and struggle subsurface, and reach in there and pull them out, and it's a non-event, but they were drowning. That was the instinctive drowning response, right? And so. And that was a lot of comments on the article was from lifeguards who go, it was never explained to me that. I knew that's what it was, but it was never explained that way or why it was that way.
So what should somebody look for if, what does drowning actually look like?
Well, there's no 100% all the time thing they look like, but primarily the instinctive drowning response. Again, what they want is there's a struggle for air. They want freeboard. They want their mouth above the water, and they don't have the capability to do it for whatever reason. They're non-swimmers, the water's too cold, or they're hung up on whatever the reason is. The struggle is the head usually goes back to get the mouth up. The arms go lateral. The arms go out sideways and press down on the surface of the water, so their heads will bob up above and then go below the surface of the water, and that will repeat. There is some splashing, but there's not this deliberate splashing to gain attention.
Right.
There's not usually the splashing is from their arms extending out laterally and then pushing down on the surface of the water. But
I've also read that there can be this climbing invisible ladder kind of thing going on.
There is one where it looks like they're doing the dog paddle, but they're not making way, or they're trying to climb a ladder.
Yeah.
And head back, eyes glassy. If they have long hair and it's in front of their face, that's one of the things that lifeguards should now be, of course, trained to look for, because people don't like hair in their face.
Right. And
they'll wipe it out of the way. But if they're in the instinctive drowning response, they're not controlling their arm movements, and they can't stop drowning to get their hair out of their eyes. And again, they're bobbing below and above the surface of the water, so people with long hair will be in front of their face, and so that's a real strong indication that they're having trouble. And there's others, and there's there are people that have spun around, and there's videos. These kids in there, they're swimming. It looks their struggle is bringing them underwater or turning them over, and so. That doesn't mean they're not drowning because they're doing something other than this, but the most common indications, the most common reactions to the instinctive drowning response is that head bobbing, climbing a ladder, not making much headway, no supporting kick, eyes are glassy and unfocused. They're usually facing, if they're at a beach, they're usually facing the shore because that's where they wanted to get to, and that's where the drowning process began. And so, but primarily, I think what parents or people who are watching the water should look for is that thing you're not really looking for. So, kids in the water make noise and splash and play and move around. If they're not doing that, that's who you want to pay attention to.
Right.
And so it's almost you look for the absence of movement and then evaluate it. Like, why is that? Everyone else is moving through the water and playing, and that child isn't. And so that's who you focus on and see how they're doing, And I'm a big fan of just talking to them. Hey, you okay? If they can go yes, then they are. If they can talk to you about it, then they're okay.
Yeah.
If they don't answer you, then there's no shame in jumping in the water and taking care of it. I say jump in the water. I'm gonna get heat for that. Jumping in the water
in a pool, maybe with a kid.
Yeah. If the water's 4 feet and you're 6, you can go ahead and jump in untrained. You can jump in untrained and not be a lifeguard and pick up a 4-year-old. You're not going to die.
You'll probably be okay. Yeah. But obviously what you're referring to is, if someone's drowning in the ocean and it's an adult and you're not trained, you probably shouldn't go swimming after them.
Yeah, swimming out them can certainly turn out bad for the rescuer, the untrained rescuer, for sure, and even the trained rescuer, depending on how bad that situation is. But there's this thing that's stuck because everything that rhymes always sticks around for a while, and so there's reach, throw, row, and go, right?
Yeah.
Or reach, throw, row, don't go. I mean, they're trying to find a way to make a moniker that you can remember that teaches you how to rescue. And I always, and I take heat for this, I kind of disagree. I should reach if someone's at the pool side,
right,
and I can reach and grab them, I don't need to jump in the ground, just reach and grab them. I get that, but it's sort of the idea that you're going to take a lot of time. The instinctive drowning response is 30 to 60 seconds, usually, and then they're under. And now we're really risking serious aquatic injury, and I don't think you should let that happen because you're trying to figure out a different way to get to them. When okay, you're a non-swimmer, and you don't know the rescue gear, jump in, grab the side of the pool, reach out and grab them, but don't stand there and wait,
watch someone drown.
Don't sit there. You can't. A complete non-swimmer, and there have been families, and it's been tragic, usually in open water like a river or something, who have one child steps off the edge, starts drowning, the mother goes to get the child, the mother starts drowning, the dad goes out, and then all three of them go. And of course, if your skills are that far removed and the environment's that different, then you can't go. But I couldn't have sat there on the beach on the dad's shoulder and told him not to go try and save his wife and kid and that work. So that's why it's called tragedy, because that's what's going to happen. They're not going to stand there and go, well, I'll wait for 911, and so I think it's better to be equipped. And if you're a non-swimmer in the river, you should have a life jacket on. That's the message there, not how do I save them? Well, before you leave the house, give them life jackets. That's how you save them in that situation.
The row part of that always struck me as interesting. If someone's drowning, where do you find a rowing device?
Right. Do you quick grab a boat. You're at a beach, steal a surfboard. Fine. I get it.
Sure.
But often around pools, the amount of flotation around pools is usually pretty heavy. I got a pool in my backyard, and now it's a shallow pool, so I don't have a problem. I can stand up in the deep end. But if it was deeper, there's the chase lounges have flotation on them. Those pads that I lay on float.
Sure.
You jump in the water with that, put it between you and the 10-year-old, and the 10-year-old's going to grab it, and then you're both fine.
Right.
Now you can work it. Now you're working a different problem. How do I get to the side of the pool? But I have freeboard. The child has freeboard. The drowning's over. Now let's solve a different problem. And I've seen people struggle poolside trying to figure out what to do about that I'm not a good swimmer problem while standing next to flotation.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of situational awareness, knowing what to look for. Realizing that you're sitting next to a life-saving device that you probably had never previously identified as a life-saving device.
As a life-saving device, yeah. I've seen coolers used to great effect at a beach.
Sure.
I saw a really sharp dad pick up the cooler, dump everything out of it, and run out into the surf, and push the cooler between him and the kid he saw that was struggling in a rip current.
That's really cool.
And then he just held on to the cooler and really waited till they drifted back into the beach. That's how that worked out.
Right.
And so, and I would have just ran out because I'm like, I got it.
Yeah.
But the cooler would have been a smarter idea for a trained rescuer, and that was when I was young and in shape, and I still would have ran out because I wasn't thinking. But the dad was smarter than I was, really. Because again, in drowning, you want to say you're trying to solve one problem at a time, right? And the problem was the kid was having an airway problem, and so he quickly got there with a cooler, and now he had a different problem. The airway problem solved. Now I just got to get back to the beach,
right?
And so I was going to go out there and do the whole rescue, and it's not that I don't think I could have pulled it off, but they came back not tired and ready to have lunch.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It'd have been a struggle if I, did it.
Yeah. You would have swam out there, brute forced it, brought it back,
Yeah, it's the young firefighter, old firefighter uh, uh, thing. Where the young firefighter busts down the door, and the young firefighter checks to see if it's hot and locked.
Yeah.
Opens it.
What gear do you have behind you there?
Oh, sorry. I'm in my office at Life Saving Systems. And my office is the showroom. So this is all the
Okay.
rescue gear that we make here.
Oh,
We make
cool.
baskets and litters, and those are the rescue litters, and those are the harnesses that the rescue swimmers use. And this is the perfect job for an ex-helicopter rescue guy who is too old to hang from a helicopter.
So why did you decide to join the Coast Guard?
I was in the Navy, and I had gotten out of the Navy, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was walking up and down the beach in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and I saw when I was in the Navy, I saw the helicopter rescue guys in the Navy when I was on an aircraft carrier, and I wanted to do it. And they go, "Nah, we can't let you do it. I was a radar technician." And they go, "No, we have too much money in your radar training. We can't let you do that." And I went, "Well, all right. Well, I'm going to get out." And then I wanted to join the Coast Guard, and they wanted me to be a radar technician, and I said, "I want to be a rescue swimmer." And so I just had to wait. I just had to wait, and I wanted to do it. I don't know. I thought I'd be good at it. I'm young, and I go, and everyone, you want to do what you're good at, or you want to be good at what you do.
Right.
And
so were you not good at being a radar technician?
No, I was pretty good at it, but I didn't like doing it.
Right.
And I could have made a perfectly good living for my life being, an electronics technician. I have friends that I was on the boat with when I was 19 who are still doing that line of work and are doing fine. It just never
wasn't for you.
I wasn't really excited about it. That's all. And
so from 18 to 22, I'm guessing you were in the Navy-ish.
Yeah, I turned 18 in boot camp, and then I spent 6 years in the Navy, and then I got out.
So you went in early.
Oh yeah. My mother had to sign to have me join when I was 17.
My dad did the same thing. He wanted to go to the Army when he was 17 to get out of his house, and he had to have his mom sign, and he volunteered to go to Vietnam when he was 17.
Yeah.
But same kind of thing. He got the permission slip and the whole nine.
Yeah, my mother ran down waving a pen. She's like, "Yes, take them,
please."
Yeah. But anyway, so I just wanted to do the job, and I went in the Coast Guard, and I almost didn't do it. Because I went in the Coast Guard, and I was on a boat with a guy. I was on a patrol boat, and my boss was a bosun mate. He's the guy that he drove the boat, and drove the small boat, and he was really cool, and I really liked him. And when you really like someone, you want to be that guy. And I almost became a bosun mate and a boat driver. And then at the day I was going to sign the papers and become a boat driver, my orders to rescue swimmer school came in, and I went, "See ya." and I decided to go that route. So it worked out.
Yeah, a little bit. I would say so. Right.
I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. So talk about being a rescue swimmer. What does that entail for anybody who isn't aware of what that means?
Yeah, it's a lot harder to get the job than to do the job.
Okay.
I always say, people don't like when I say that, but it's true. It's really hard to get the job.
I guess kind of like any kind of special ops, Navy SEALs. It's hard to get in.
It's hard to get in. It's hard to make it through the training. It's not Navy SEAL training. Let's clear that up. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's tough. It's the toughest thing the Coast Guard's got.
Right.
That's not Navy SEAL training, because the Coast Guard has a couple guys pass SEAL school. There's a couple Coast Guard SEALs out there now.
Cool.
But it's certainly the toughest non-combat training, for sure. I think, and for different reasons. And it's a 16, 17, or maybe now even 18-week school in North Carolina. And I don't know that I'd make it through today. I mean, I went to school, I got the job, I did the job, then I worked at the school, and right. I think it's probably harder now And I feel like I barely made it through. Like I don't know if that's true or not, but it's what it feels like. It feels like you barely make it through. I think everyone thinks they graduated by the skin of their teeth. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's probably on purpose to make it feel like you just barely made it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's but it was humbling, and it was decent training. And then you go out there and do the job and learn what it really is, and it's a bit different than training. And the job is what we call 30 days of boredom followed by 30 seconds of panic. I mean, there's a lot of waiting around. There's a lot of flying around. Turning what we call turning fuel into noise. I mean, most SAR cases. I mean, 9 out of 10 of them. 9 out of 10 times it seems like when the aircraft takes off, we land having made no difference in anyone's life whatsoever because you don't find anything, or it wasn't a real thing to find, or whatever the case is, and so. And, a lot of the work is just medical evacuations. You do all this rescue swimmer training and you got to pull 3 angry guys out of the water in 30 minutes. And it's a real hassle to pass that final test. And then your first 20 rescues are you go down to a boat and walk around.
Right.
And so and you're just using your EMT skills to package up a patient and, you're pretty much hauling them back to the beach, to a hospital. So, but then every now and then it's a really hairy rescue in big water and waves, and then you find out what kind of shape you're in. I always felt like I should swim more. Yeah.
Right. I should have trained more. So talk about the movie.
Which movie? The
Guardian
movie.
The movie.
Guardian.
Yeah.
Oh, it was not entirely embarrassing because it could have been. It could have been embarrassing. It wasn't. It was if you've seen it, if you haven't seen it, it's one of those when you cannot figure out what else to watch, you should watch it.
Yeah, I saw it like 10 years ago. I don't remember it much,
Yeah, no.
And I feel like I should watch it now with some context,
Yeah, it's all the rescue people asking me, was it real? All the rescues that they showed in the movie were realistic. What was unrealistic was all 4 or 5 of them happened to the same guy within 3 months.
Right.
That doesn't.
Yeah,
they were all like epic once in a lifetime rescues.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that was unreal was the operations center had like 7 people in it and live feeds from the rescue. And the operations center is a phone. There's 3 televisions on the wall. 2 of them have football scores on, and the other one's the calendar. And there's one guy in there. It's not like a team. They sort of mixed the idea of the
they made it look
air
cool.
station operations center and the rescue center, and so it was kind of they had to tell a story, but that was unrealistic. Anyway, but the training and the training they showed was not realistic because there weren't enough grown men crying.
Right.
It didn't look hard enough.
That might have been more compelling, actually.
Yeah. There are some B-roll scenes that they filmed of the actual training that they interjected. So when you see the kid throwing up because he's exhausted, that's actually from the school.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So is the Kevin Costner character literally based on you, or is it a montage?
No. Or no? I think well, it was complete fiction.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote the script didn't know any of us, or I don't even know if he talked to any. I don't even think he talked to anybody.
Gotcha.
He didn't seem to know anything. The guy that wrote the script. Costner based his actions on, and I know it's because I watched him do it. He based most of his character on a guy named Bobby Watson.
Okay.
Who was like, he was older and in better shape than all of us, and quite the legend. He spent a lot of time talking to Bobby, and then he took on Bobby's mannerisms.
Gotcha.
Bobby had like 3 broken fingers, and in the movie, if you watch it, Kevin Costner's right hand's always kind of crooked.
Gotcha.
Right, he does that kind of stuff. And so he was playing Bobby is what he was doing. I know he was.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, the guy that was me was the guy you never saw who was in the back sewing stuff. That was me.
Sewing things together?
Yeah.
Are you in the film at all anywhere?
Not at all. No, not even for a second.
Yeah.
No, I was there when they filmed it. I was there. My involvement was my only involvement with the movie was before they decided to do the movie. They came on a research thing to North Carolina, and for 2 days I walked around with Kevin Costner and answered questions when he wasn't talking to Bobby.
Right.
just they walked around the base for a couple of days and asked questions and saw the school, and so that was somewhere deep in the archive I got a picture of me and Kevin and Ashton Kutcher and the director. We're just standing there, but that was it. And then they came to film it, and that was it.
At least they spent a couple days walking around and trying to get a feel for it.
They spent a lot of time. They spent some time in the pool and in the movie, Bobby Watson was in the movie. Like, he's in the movie, and they had like 3 instructors. They had 3 real instructors on the pool deck as actors in the movie. And so that's who the guys that were telling them, this is real, this is not real, whatever.
I mean, that makes a huge difference, right? I mean, if you've got somebody who really knows what's going on, that could probably, make or break something like that.
Yeah.
So
hey, I want to know about pool barriers, because I know you guys have been making fencing for years.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious as to what's been the most effective. I mean, some places require double barriers or 3 sides, and you can't use the house as a barrier if it's got a door, things like that. But I just wonder because you make primarily pool fencing, right? Do you make surface barriers like nets or anything like that? Are you guys getting into that at all?
We don't. No. So we exclusively make, the mesh pool safety fences.
Right. Okay.
And we find those to be the most effective, more than the nets. Not because there's anything wrong with nets.
I think they're easier to take down. They're easier to use.
The problem with nets is people, like most things, right? The nets are hard to get on and off. So, if you take a net off and you think you might go back in the pool at some point, you're not going to put it back on. And likewise, if you've got the net on, there's a good chance, you don't feel like taking the net off to get in the pool. So the main issue with nets isn't the net, it's, human beings. Right. So with the fence, it's nice. You open it up, it's got a gate, you walk through it, it closes behind you. You can leave it up all the time. You could take it down for a party if you had to, but you don't have to worry about completely disassembling it to.
I like the net. I like the nets for closing the pool down for the winter.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Or a pool cover. I guess they got those up north. Yeah. They have the winter covers, but yeah, layers of protection. With a pool fence, I think is your best, most effective bet. For sure. With a self-closing, self-latching gate, with an alarm on it if you really want to go, full bore.
Get next level. Yeah.
I think that's probably your safest thing, So it's funny, you used the word effective, and I thought about, kind of the scope of what you've done. And it seems like you've done a good job of figuring out the way that you can contribute most effectively in the role that you're in. And I read a book a long time ago called The Effective Executive. And that's kind of the gist of it, is that you at any given moment, you decide, all right, what can I do to contribute the most to this situation at any given time? And I was thinking about your like the online classes you came up with in the Coast Guard for the aviation school, right? I mean, that seems to be an ongoing thing. You did the classes, and then you wrote the article.
Well, I think. Listen, I think focus. I stumbled into drowning prevention. I was not a drowning prevention guy. You and I met. I think you were at the 2012 NDPA meeting in San Diego.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and but I got asked to speak because I wrote that article. That's why I got asked to speak, because I wrote that article and someone contacted me, and I was in the Coast Guard, and I'm like, hey, cool, I'll get to go speak, and I was in the Coast Guard at the time. I came in uniform and spoke, and really the next thing I knew, I think I was on the board of the Joshua Collingsworth Memorial Foundation the second night I was there.
Gotcha.
And they voted me onto the board, and because I gave that talk there on risk analysis, but I wasn't a drowning guy.
Are you still on that board?
That is the board I'm still on.
That's cool.
That's the one, and one of the reasons that's the one board I've been on several, and that's the one that I'm attached to, because I had to pick one.
Right.
I'm not because I'm not an early education guy. I'm not a childhood education guy. And I'm not really a drowning prevention guy. I'm a response guy. My expertise isn't what you do when you didn't prevent drowning. And so, boating safety is one thing, but my expertise isn't in boating. My expertise is after you stop boating safely and now you need rescue.
Right.
And so my boating safety advice is about all the mistakes I saw made that turned safe boating into not safe boating. So it's more philosophy. But I think picking one thing. So with drowning prevention, if I have a goal, it is to teach everyone I can that it's complex. And if all I do for the rest of my life is get more people to realize that drowning is silent and that you should look, that if you're not watching the water, you're not watching. You're not there if you're not looking at the water. If I can just get that across, that's it. And so that's my side hustle. My side hobby is that's why every chance I can get the article translated, I do, and put it up and share it in that country, so we can move it around. With JCMF, with the Joshua College with Memorial Foundation, which is a plug, joshtheotter.org. I had to pick one because you get scattered and you end up being no good in any of them. So I just wanted to focus on one, and quite frankly, that's the one to me that I think has the greatest chance for long-term impact. Is getting to you get to if I can get to a 2-year-old, then all the things you and I talk about drowning prevention will be the things that 16-year-old will say, well, duh, like we've always known that. Like, how is that
Right.
news?
Yeah.
And that's what we're going for. I'm going for my daughter in the car. God, she was 8, calling me out for seatbelts. And I remember I went to I stopped. I don't remember where it was, but I stopped and I bought beer. I think it was like a 4th of July party, and I bought beer. Right. I brought it into the car, and she said, "You can't do that. You're driving." I said, I'm just carrying it, honey. I'm just carrying it,
Yeah.
But, very serious about, so drunk driving and seatbelts were handled, kids, young kids or at least certainly she had known it. So making a generational change in the way people think so that my article doesn't go viral because it's not news to anybody.
Right. We all know. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's what Blake and Kathy are trying to do, and that's why that's my board. I'll leave when they kick me off because I've been there too long, I guess.
I mean, as far as boating safety, you wrote an article once, and there was a line in it that stuck with me, and I hope it was you.
Yeah.
But what it said was that open water tragedies, boating tragedies, happen before you leave the dock. That if something goes wrong on a boat, the error was made, at home or on the way there or at the dock in preparation.
I haven't seen it, with the exception of some medevacs. Okay.
Sure.
Guy has undiagnosed appendicitis and then it flares up while he's out to sea. That's what you get. A boat worker who falls and breaks an arm. That's just what you get. That's sure. The hazard of the job. But every SAR case I've been on, every one I've studied, the error chain starts before the line is thrown off. Invariably, like I've never seen one.
Right.
And I get argument, and that's a philosophy. Okay, it's fair enough. Because, well, what about a collision? Somebody hits me and it wasn't my fault. Okay. I think you have a training problem with lookout. Yeah. I don't think you've carefully evaluated your safe speed and what you're doing out there. If you're in a place where on the open water you can get hit and have no option. Mm-hmm. But that's semantic. So I suppose, that's it. And you're in a crowded waterway and someone bumps into you and knocks a hole in your boat. Okay, all right, fair enough. That wasn't caused before leaving the dock. But those are the ones that end up costing you money. They're rarely the ones where I'm talking about the people that I fly out to look for and never find, right. Which happens. You want to drop your jaw And I've got a Google alert for the phrase Coast Guard suspends search.
Oh, wow.
Daily, every day, all over the country, all over the world, every day, someone's given up on a search. Every day, twice a day, 4 times a day, they give up. And you don't hear about it, but the person's unaccounted for. The Coast Guard stats got, and I think I said this to you in 2012 at the NDPA conference, the dip in boating statistics, where boating got dramatically safer in the late 80s, was because they changed the way they counted the numbers.
Right.
They count people that they didn't find, they called dead, and they realized, we don't know if they're dead. They could be dead. They could be fishing. Maybe they ran away. I don't know. And so they called them persons unaccounted for. And it changed the statistics. But in a 5-year period, there were 3,687 persons unaccounted for.
Wow.
It happens right now. This morning, someone flew a final search on the East Coast and gave up on a boat. Guaranteed. Happens it's daily. And so that's what happens. They give up, and then you don't hear about it because the guys from it's in another city and it doesn't make national news. The
Sure.
2 kids go missing off of Fort Lauderdale. It makes national news because they're 2 young kids.
Right.
And it's tragic, and it captures the nation's attention. And it happened 7 times that week to other people you didn't hear about.
Sure.
And so that was my focus for boating safety was, listen, these are mistakes that made before leaving the dock. The mistake there, and I'm unafraid to say it, was letting 14-year-olds go offshore.
Yeah. I thought that same thing, actually.
Yeah. The father said they weren't, he said on the news, they were just supposed to stay in the river. They weren't going to go offshore. But the 911 call said they went offshore.
So they knew.
Yeah. They were allowed to go offshore. And it's not that kids can't boat. I get this, I boated my whole life. That's great. And as long as everything goes fine, a 15-year-old's equipped.
Sure.
But a 15-year-old's not equipped to get his boat flipped and be upside down 7 miles offshore. He's not equipped.
Right.
He's got no chance. He's too young. And it's the same reason I don't like 16-year-olds as lifeguards. And I know they do it, and the Red Cross says they can do it. But I don't think a 16-year-old should be a lifeguard by themselves. Like a 16-year-old can become a Red Cross certified lifeguard, and they can go get a job at the local apartment pool and be the only lifeguard on duty. And I don't think they can't do the job. What I think is they should not, when you let your 16-year-old be a lifeguard by themselves at a pool, you're saying, I'm okay if he ends up doing CPR on a 4-year-old and thinking the child's death is his fault. And I don't think that's fair to do to a 16-year-old. I don't think they can handle it. I don't think they should have to handle that.
Right.
I don't want my 16-year-old going, did I kill that child? It's too young to put that responsibility on. Not that they can't go do a save. And so I'm all for, they can be 16-year-old lifeguards, but they're not by themselves. That's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, a lifeguard's job.
But that's what I think.
No, but a lifeguard's job is literally to, save someone in a life or death situation. That doesn't sound like a 16-year-old job.
No, and whether it doesn't matter about fault. It's going to feel like their fault.
Of course, absolutely.
It could have been the kid could have had a seizure. This is my thing. The WISCARS database, the CDC database on drownings. No one's ever drowned ever. There's no history of anyone ever drowning because they had a seizure.
Okay.
Well, because you can't tell they had a seizure when when they're recovered. There's no evidence of a seizure.
Right.
There's no blood draw to say they seized.
Sure.
And so that it's never counted. And if you have a seizure and you haven't had them before, the doctor won't let you drive for 6 months. And he says you shouldn't go swimming. Somebody had their first seizure while swimming and they drowned, but it doesn't get counted that way. Anyway, so I say that to say this, that, it cannot be the lifeguard's fault that the person drowned and didn't recover, or that they missed it because they're 16 and they're by themselves. And then, and whether it's going to feel like their fault. They're going to spend a massive amount of time with that emotional trauma, and I think that's too young to put on a 16-year-old.
No, I agree.
So they're Red Cross. That's what I think.
You talk about stats. The stat that I wish we could change or adjust is how we count a drowning fatality, or we don't count a drowning fatality 12 months later or 6 months later or even 2 years later, right? Where, someone, drowned, they survived, they, had a bunch of damage, and then they pass away a year later or 2 years later. And that doesn't get, it's not part of the public record. I think we're severely underestimating the number of people that die because, they die of a respiratory complication, 8 months later.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the states all do it different anyway.
Right.
Some states, if they die 3 hours later, it's not because of drowning.
Which is, that's insane.
Yeah. And so I don't know what the answer is. You have to federalize the database. You'd have to federalize, I don't know what the answer is. I don't think
we have the CDC already. I feel like that's, I don't know.
But those numbers but those reports come in from different state agencies, and their criteria for reporting a certain thing is different.
100%.
For sure, someone's died from drowning and it got recorded as something else. That happens all the time. And so if you look for a drowning death, it's not going to show up, even though it was, like you said, because it happened a month later or even a week later. They'll say they died of heart failure or,
a 5-year-old.
Right.
So tell me about life-saving systems. What do you guys do now? You're in your office.
They've been doing it for 38 years. I got this job. I didn't expect this job at all. This was a surprise job. I was minding my own. I just gone down to Fort Pierce to teach a professional mariners, what's called STCW, the Professional Mariners Boating Safety Course, a week-long course, and I was taking a break in New Smyrna Beach, and my phone rang, and it was this guy that owns this place, Sam Manis, and I knew who he was, but I'd never met him. And he said, I asked him, I thought he had like 3 ex-rescue guys in here, and he goes, no, I got 35 people, and none of them have ever been in a helicopter but me. I can't leave. I'm the only one that can talk to a customer. And he asked if I'd come here so he could take vacation, which is where he is right now, actually. But it's but they've made Sam's makes most of the helicopter rescue gear and a lot of the boating rescue gear that the Coast Guard uses and Navy uses.
Oh wow!
In the world, and so every helicopter rescue basket you've ever seen on the news was made here.
Oh wow!
And it's a true manufacturing plant. It's 30,000 square feet. And we get in raw metal and material in one end, and they cut it, bend it, shape it, weld it, and turn it into rescue baskets and litters on the other side.
Sounds like my place.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's a pretty decent place. So it's small. It's a real niche market. There's not a lot of helicopter rescue gear out there.
Right.
But I think it's certainly the best, and I like Sam's attitude. You have to pry me out here with a crowbar. He's like, the rescuers should have the best gear possible, and if we can't make it, they should get it somewhere else. And so it's hard not to like working for a guy like that. So.
Sure. So what do you do there?
I'm the general manager. They came here. I don't know. They wanted me to talk to customers, and then 3 months later, they had asked me to do so much stuff. I'm like, okay, that's 5 years worth of work. What should I do first? And that was 2.5 years ago. And now I'm the general manager. So,
okay.
So what I do, product development, I still talk to customers a lot, but manufacturing process and, what's a good piece of gear, what's not, what are we making next? What are we not going to make anymore? What's dangerous, what's not dangerous. So, and now my big project for this year is product context. Is we've made these things for a reason, and we're starting to notice that the rescuers don't know what they're for. Like, why is it that way? They don't know why. Hey, why is that buckle over there, or why is it shaped this way? And and so just getting across why it's designed the way it is, so they can make better decisions about how they use it. I'm seeing pictures of our gear all the time being used in a way that we didn't intend for it to be used. Like, that's not what it's designed for.
Right.
And so, but we have a responsibility there, I think, to tell the story of each product and why it's made the way it is, and why this was the intent.
Sure.
Because you can't tell a rescue guy what to do, like he knows.
Right.
So we're just going to tell them what we meant, and then they can make a decision.
Yeah, they can choose to do that or not, I guess.
Yeah.
So what other, besides this and the drowning doesn't look like drowning, what other kind of side things do you have going on?
I'm trying to do less and less side things, but my latest side that I wrote for Soundings Magazine, this weekly safety blog, and then I ran out of stuff to say. I felt like I was teaching a class and I was out of stuff to say, and so I just said, "Any questions?" We just turned it into a Q&A thing, like Ask Mario. Like, I don't know. I've told you everything I think you should know, and until you get good at this, I got nothing. And so
right.
So now they're asking questions, and so now I'm doing a weekly question and answer thing on that. And I did an online boating safety course for Boaters University, which is pretty much 5 hours of me dropping a lifetime of those mistakes made at the dock. This is what gets you bit out there. This is how not to get bit out there based on what I've seen. And so it's not a typical boating safety course. I'm not going to teach you nav rules or that you should have a sharp lookout. It's going to be on float plans and checklists and maintenance and training. And every life raft has a boarding ramp on it, a ladder that hangs down from the raft to help you climb into it. If you step on it, you're never getting in the raft. So those kinds of trade secrets, if you will.
Sure.
The things I know that you wouldn't know, that like the day end of the flare that pops off orange smoke is really good at night because of what the aircraft, they look with infrared. It's not orange smoke, it's really hot orange smoke. And when they look for infrared, they see it for a long anyway. So things like that. And that course is at boatersuniversity.com. And it just got released like a week ago. It was a complete hassle to make.
How long did it take?
Forever. It took forever. It was like 3 days of filming, and then so much work before and after that. But I didn't. I always wanted to do it. I wanted to do it on my website, but I've got this pesky day job that I love, and I didn't want to do a bad job of it. So I was back and forth, and I just teamed up with these guys because they seemed to put on a quality course, and so that just released, and people are buying it, and good, so that's what
how much is it?
It's a lot of money. It's $350, which I'm proud of. You can take a boating safety course for $35. But I can assure you're not going to hear any of this stuff that I'm telling you. I think you take this, by all means, take the boating safety course. That's the stuff I'm not teaching. It's not basic.
Right.
It is next level, I think. And so it's there for $350. But if you email me at mario@vittone.com or mario@mariovittone.com, I'll send you a discount code for 20% off.
There you go. $70. You can't beat that.
Quick math.
Yeah. Occasionally, it's like I work with numbers all day.
Got the brain on Eric.
Yeah. Look at that. It's like I look at financial statements and P&Ls all day. It's weird, right? It's funny how it works, So is there anything that you want people to know before we let you go back to work?
Safety around the water is, like everything, more complex than you think it is.
Yeah.
It's more complex. It requires effort. It requires thought, and it requires some of your time. And so the water's got to be blue and clear, and it's got to be fun. And I'm not trying to take the fun out of your water activities, but if you don't spend some time seriously considering how you're going to be safe today, you're not going to be safe today.
I agree with that 100%.
All right.
Thanks, Mario. I really appreciate you doing this.
You bet. No problem at all.
And thanks for the article and everything else you've done. I think your article is kind of like pool fence in that it's hard to gauge, how many people you've probably affected or saved with it. but there's guaranteed it's had to have had an impact for sure.
Well, thanks.
Absolutely.
I hope so.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one, Mario. Take it easy.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. Like that for me, Sarah.